Afternoon, friends. Another day in the shop, another bike to work on. Today we're going to get to hammering on this 1966 Shovelhead. I need to take it apart. I need to get it ready to pull the motor and transmission out of it so I can get those rebuilt. Now behind me, as you can see up here, I've added a second section of shelving. So I'm going to take the parts that aren't being utilized right now and I'm going to get them up onto that shelf for safekeeping. I don't have a lot of good spaces to keep stuff and I want to keep it all together as much as possible. So I'm going to get some boxes and some other things to utilize the shelf space so I can kind of keep everything from this bike in one section. As opposed to the other side of the shop where I have the 1948 WL, everything for that bike is on that shelf. And that project's going to have a little update coming pretty soon too. Hopefully this week we'll be putting that motor together. Anyway, I'm going to get to thrashing on this bike and we'll talk about this project. Today I'm going to focus on just little things. I want to get the tanks off, get the dash off, get the seat off, and then see where I'm going from there. The biggest thing, like I said, is I want to be able to get this engine and transmission out. And I'm not sure how much time I've got today. Time is always one of those things that I just don't have enough of. So I'm going to focus on what I can get done this afternoon, so that way I can get some of the things on the shelf and get this one step closer to being disassembled. The nice thing is some of these parts are really loose. I've already taken this dash off a couple of times. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that real quick here and just set it aside. So the story on this motorcycle, I bought this off of Facebook Marketplace, like I said, 7 years ago. It was a listing that was put up, not very well done. I wasn't exactly sure what I was looking at, so I had messaged the seller a couple of times, gave them my phone number and asked them to give me a call. The seller did call me finally, and when she did, we set up a time to actually see the bike. So I went to the seller's house and saw the bike. Like I said, it was tucked in the back corner of the garage, kind of underneath everything and really hidden away from the world. And you could tell it'd been there for a little while. I talked to her and I talked to her husband and I found out that the bike was actually her brother's. And this was his dream motorcycle. This was something that he really wanted to own, so he had purchased. Well, in buying the bike, he got it home, and no more than got it home, he passed away. The bike then went from this gentleman's house to his sister's house and sat since 1997. Like I said, I picked it up 7 years ago. That's 26, 7 years, something like that. Quick math, probably not right, but I'm sure somebody can tell me the exact amount of time. But anyway, I know the bike had been sitting for a long time. And I don't know the story behind it previous to the guy that bought it. I'm not sure who had it before that, where it came from, any of that good stuff. Now this motorcycle has a Harley Davidson police dash, and this is an FL motor. And from the research that I've done, FLs were typically police bikes. And I could totally be wrong. I'm sure somebody can correct me on that, and I'd be grateful for that information. But anyway, on this speedometer, which I believe is correct for this bike, I believe it came with this bike. I could be wrong, but it shows 70,000 miles. Now I don't know if this bike has 70,000 miles on it. I'm not sure if this speedometer was added at a later date. I don't know. But what I do know is last summer, I kind of messed with it a little bit, and I had to figure out if this thing would run. I knew it kicked over real well, and it does have really good compression, honestly. It sounds good in the engine to me. So with that knowledge, I knew that I could, potentially start this thing. So I put a battery in it, and I flipped the ignition, and I kicked it over a couple of times, pulled spark plugs to see if I had spark. Well, I didn't have spark. One of the things I failed to recognize was that this has a modern master cylinder on it from a 70s Shovelhead or Ironhead, and it's wired in. The run stop switch is actually wired into this. It's kind of neat. Didn't think about that. So once I flipped that stop switch to start, or run, I kicked it over, well, I had spark. The timer here, the bracket was actually loose, and this had rattled around a bunch. So I did not know if it was in time, but I knew I had spark. So I took my fuel bag, and I put my fuel bag on it, hung some, hung that on the handlebars, put some fresh gas in it. I had already taken the carb and rebuilt it myself, so the carb was all fresh, and I attempted to start this thing. It did sput and sputter and try to fire, and I could tell that the timing wasn't correct. So I abandoned the project at that point in time, and I tucked it back in the garage. I wasn't ready to do anything with the bike yet. I just wanted to see, if I could get it to run, hear it run, see what it sounded like, see what I could do at that point in time. My hesitation with that and having it running is this odometer here saying 70,000 miles. I don't know what work has been done to this bike, what work hasn't been done to this bike, what maintenance has been done to this bike. So that left me a little bit afraid. I was, again, hoping to hear it maybe run a little bit and kind of get an idea of what it sounded like, but maybe it's for the best that it didn't actually fire and run based on that information. Sometimes you get a little excited about things and you start doing things out of sequence, and that was probably really out of sequence. So I never got the bike to run last summer, but I had some parts. I had an FL style fender, a pogo seat, and a aftermarket seat, and I wanted to see what it would look like on the bike. So I did put those on and check it out, and I liked the look. I did like the FL fender on it, but I really liked this look. And I really almost feel drawn to getting this bike back together in this setup, just because, the guy that had bought it originally, or not originally, but had bought it, and his sister ended up with it, liked this bike so much that this is what he wanted, and he didn't have any time to enjoy it this way. Now, I don't know what his plans were, what his goals were with the bike. I have no idea. Maybe he wanted to restore it, maybe he wanted to put it back together to stock. I don't know. But my mind says he probably loved it so much the way that it was and wanted to keep it this way, and that's how he was going to ride it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it together just like this, kind of to honor his memory. Now, I didn't know the guy, that's just how I feel. I don't know, maybe that's nuts. But that's something I'm going to do with the bike. I'm going to leave it in this configuration. I do love the paint. I love the color of it. I really do. I'm not going to paint the bike. I'm going to clean it up. I'm going to polish it. I'm going to, wax it and make it look shiny as possible. But I'm not going to repaint it. I want to keep it this color. I want to keep that fender on the back. I love this seat, so the seat's going to stay. I do want to clean up the nacelle, and I want to either put cowbells on, or I might get the rubber gaiters that go in between here. I kind of like that look too. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not 100% sold on that. I'm going to go through and probably rebuild that front brake. I'll probably have to rebuild the back brakes. The back brake does work, works really well. The front brake, I don't think it's got any fluid in it. The master cylinder does seem to pump air, but I don't think there's any fluid in the system. So I'm not sure if that actually works or not. That's something I'll test in the future. But for today, that's not what we're doing. Today, we're just taking parts off, putting parts on the shelf, getting this thing kind of stripped down a little bit. Forgot my knife and need to cut off these crusty old fuel lines. They're pretty rough. And I took off this inside nut, and I want to have one tank stay on for a second while I pull the other one off. I don't want to risk dropping it. They are a 3.5 gallon tank. I know this is supposed to have 5 gallon tanks, and I actually do have the correct right side tank. I don't have the left side tank. I wasn't able to find that, unfortunately. It's something that I was really on the hunt for, and I was really thinking, oh man, I really want to get this thing back to stock, and I want to put 5 gallon tanks on it, and I want to have it, the way it should have been in 1966. But again, the more I look at this bike the way it is, the more I absolutely kind of love it this way, and this is the way I want to keep it. got some grossness in there, something rattling around in the tank. A little bit of rust. I mean, these are not bad, in my opinion. There's something metal in there though. Not sure what it is. There's a lock washer in the tank. Not sure what that's from. This back bung doesn't spin, or this back tab does not spin. And in looking at the tanks, I don't know if these are stock or if these are aftermarket. Maybe someone can tell me, you know, by looking at some of the views here on this, if these are stock tanks or aftermarket. I know there's different little nuances that you can see when you're looking at these things to tell you if they are actually original or not. And again, I don't know if these are. I don't think they are, especially based on the paint there. I mean, I know they've been repainted, so I know this color's not a stock color, but maybe these are originals, maybe they're not. I don't know. I don't see an Eaton logo on the cap, so I don't think it's the real deal. I know all of these old lines have to come off and everything has to be taken care of. But there's the inside of the left tank, obviously the bottom, and the outside. Again, hopefully somebody from these few views can tell me if this is original or not. I feel like these older tanks had this type of mount on them and they didn't screw into the tank, but again, I could be wrong. It always amazes me some of the parts that people can look at and go, oh my gosh, yeah, that's real, or oh my gosh, yeah, that's aftermarket, just that fast. And again, that's not very rusty inside. And I know that's an aftermarket cap. I'm going to keep the hardware with it that I have. I know it's not the correct hardware. I know that's not what goes with this bike, but it's what I have right now, and I'm going to go ahead and just put these things back on here just so I have them. I may reuse it, I may not. Again, with this project, I'm not sure exactly how far I'm going with it. I mean, I know I want to have it running and riding, but I'm not exactly sure like how far I'm going to break this thing down, what parts I'm going to replace. If I'm going to try to do a full hardware kit on this, or if I'm just going to use the hardware that I have with it. Nice thing is the seat comes off easy enough. Pretty cool little twist on there. It's got a part number on it actually. It says HD code, so I wonder if it's a Harley part. Number 303524. I'm not sure if that's a Harley part or not, but it's got HD on it. Kind of neat. Of course, this is an older Corbin seat. It's got some wear on the bottom side where they typically have wear. It's not in real bad shape other than that. It's got a little spot here. It's missing a button cover there, which I'm going to try to find that. I might recover this. I might just run it for a while until it's really worn out and then have it recovered. I do love the seat. To me, it's super comfortable. I think from here we're going to take the rear fender off, so that's out of the way. And then I think we'll start looking at taking off floorboards, brake mount, floorboard on the other side, and see what we're doing for time. I do want to find the right hardware for the fender. It is only drilled in a couple of places, and I'd like to find the screw head type hardware that goes on the stock style fender struts, because it does fit nicer and it is cleaner. Also, I'm not sure about this tail light. It's a cool tail light and I like it, but it doesn't sit centered in the tail. So I probably can adjust it a little bit. I might go with something different. It's kind of a neat little mount that, you know, somebody's homemade. It's just kind of a cool little design that, you know, and I kind of like. Well, she's starting to look pretty naked already. I think we're going to focus on getting these floorboards off next. I'm going to work on this side first, then we'll flip to the other side and we'll get that floorboard off, and then we'll check the time and see where we're at. I know with that, we're pretty close to, you know, getting the motor and trans out. You know, I got to remove the oil bag and the exhaust, but I feel like once I get the floorboards off, I think the exhaust will swing out of the way. It might not. I'm not sure if this is a single piece or if this is a two piece where it connects to the head pipe here underneath. I haven't looked underneath there yet. It may be one piece. But let's go ahead and get the tooling for the floorboards and get those apart. The nice thing with these older bikes, it has a floorboard tab on the left side, or the right side, excuse me. I believe it does on the left side too. Well, this one has it. I'm not sure if it's stock or not, but all you have to do is unbolt the bottom here, and then I would have to unbolt the back here, and then the floorboard actually slides right out of the way, which is super convenient in my mind. Looks like the bolt underneath is a 9/16. That's pretty loose, which is nice. I think this is the same. Quite a few years ago, I actually picked up a nice set of exhausts similar to this. They're the turnout style. They're the old, I can't remember, like the cigar tube style mufflers. And then they've got a little turnout on the end, if I remember correctly. I think they were made by Paco. I've had them in the packaging since I bought them and haven't done anything with them. It was one of the many things I bought for this bike that I found that I really liked, and you know, again, I'm going to use that because I feel like that style fits what I'm going for here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'll have to find those, dig them out, bring them to the shop one of these days, and then, of course, show you guys. Got an old Liddell lock, never heard of that. It says made in Hong Kong. I'm sure this thing's been hanging on here for a long time. But as you can see, the floorboards come off pretty easy with the two mount points. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna put the hardware back on this so I have it together. Because again, I may put this bike back together using these parts. With this project, I'm thinking more of like a resto mod, where it's, you know, got a clean engine and transmission, probably rebuild the wheels. Not probably, we'll have the wheels rebuilt because I've got some spokes missing, and the back one's fairly rusty. It's not terrible, but you know, clean the wheels up, clean the engine and trans up, get the frame stripped and then repainted, and then leave kind of the rest of it a little crusty. I like that look. To me, it looks like it's a bike that's ridden, and I'm kind of going for that style, something that, you know, looks like someone rides the thing rather than it sits in a showroom somewhere and it's just super clean. I like that look too, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's nothing against a beautiful bike that's super clean, that's very classy. I just don't have time in my busy life to take care of a bike like that, so I don't want to bring it to that level and then for me, I would stress about it being dirty or not being taken care of well enough and whatnot. So I just don't want to do that. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the brake line. And then once the brake line is removed, I should be able to unbolt this. And I think once that's unbolted, I feel like that comes off. I could be wrong. Let's get this brake line removed first and then we'll check it out. Of course, this bike will get all new brake lines. None of this stuff will be reused. These aren't, I don't think they're any good. I know a lot of guys will reuse brake lines, and I've sold a lot of used brake lines myself. I'm not comfortable doing it, so I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna take these off, hit the fender a bunch of times. I'm gonna take these off and I'm gonna replace them with something better. I love these absorbent mats. A buddy of mine gave me a bunch of these. And the great part about them is you can actually use these. They can be permeated with oil or brake fluid or whatnot. You let them dry out, and honestly, you can reuse them a couple of times. So they've been really great. I couldn't tell you what the brand is or where they came from, but a friend of mine works for a local shop here, and he was able to get me some of these. And I'd like to be able to buy some more from him and continue using them because they do work really well. I do enjoy having them around because I can put them on the floor, on the jack here, on the lift, and then of course it keeps it pretty clean. You can tell this brake line has been taken off quite a few times. The head of it's super chewed up. And of course the ratchet then sticks to it and doesn't want to come off. Forgot to grab my rag for the day, so I had to go find one. Of course, the old Wagner does work real well. It looks a little rough, but like I said, it does work. So I might not rebuild that, honestly. I don't think it needs it. I do have a rebuild kit sitting on the shelf, so we'll see. I'll drain it, check it all out, check the bore, run it through a couple cycles and see how it does. But like I said, it did work. I stopped the bike numerous times when I pushed it around and pulling it out of a trailer and all that good stuff. So there are two bolts to the mount here. One is behind the master cylinder itself, so I'm removing that one now. Once I get that removed, and the master cylinder and the brake pedal are out of the way. And I can see that this is a two-piece setup with this pipe here. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this exhaust today. The front exhaust has a bolt here and then a bolt in the head. The rear exhaust, maybe there's I guess there's an exhaust bracket that connects both of them in the back here too. The rear exhaust connects obviously in the back and at the head itself. So I'm going to get those off as well and get those out of the way. I take that back. This front exhaust, there's nothing in the back here. The bracket actually only runs to the rear and then up to the pipe itself. So the exhaust is only supported right here at this bracket. I don't think that's the best design, and I'm not sure if it was intended to be that way. It's something I'll probably have to address once I put the new exhaust on. I know with the exhaust that I have, I don't have the bracketry for it, so I'll have to look and see what the brackets were that were needed to mount that properly. Because I don't feel like just one bolt and then having it loose here is the proper way to do that. I feel like that creates undue stress on parts. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to get to looking on that. I know that this bike didn't have any of this stuff stock. I know that when it came, it should have had duals, and this pipe would have connected here, and there would have been another connection back here, I believe. Yeah, there should have been a rail that fit to the exhaust on both sides, and that way I had 3 good mount points. But on this one, only has one, which is right there, and I don't love that. It looks like that's a 1/2 inch nut and bolt setup here, so I'm going to go ahead and get this spun off. Throw it around, I guess. It does just feel like that's a good secure mount right there in that section. So I don't hate it, but I worry about it. I worry about, you know, how much stress that's causing on this mount right here, which I feel like is probably a lot. So I want to secure that a little better way. Of course, this front head pipe is always a bear to get to. There's not a lot of room in there. So I got just enough to spin a ratchet. I'll have to get this front head pipe off first. I've got that out of the way. With that pipe out of the way, I should be able to slide this forward and then out. So that's a nice little two-piece setup there. Of course, it makes it easy to be able to slide out that way. So that takes that exhaust and gets that right out of the way. Next we'll work on the back exhaust here. We'll go ahead and get this separated. This has a Allen head screw in it, or an Allen head bolt, excuse me, and then it's fixed to the muffler in the back here. So we're going to go ahead and loosen the Allen head first, and then we'll loosen the muffler from the bracket, and then once that's done, then we can get ready to pull this bracket. I went ahead and removed the entire stud from the front, from this back head here. Now I'm going to go ahead and loosen up the muffler connection just to get the exhaust to remove. All right, then that removes the rear exhaust. So now with the exhaust out of the way, I think I'm going to focus on taking off the oil bag. I know I still have to move to the other side and remove that floorboard, but while I'm on this side, I'm going to go ahead and take off the oil tank. And again, with these oil lines being essentially petrified, I'm going to just go ahead and cut the rubbers, and that way I can be able to get this out properly. That way I'm not fighting it, trying to pull them off. You know, they're not in good shape, so I'm going to go ahead and cut them. With the oil lines cut, it's time to move to the other side of the bike. There's one connection point at the chain guard, and then there's two connection points on the backbone here for the seat post that need to be removed for the oil tank to come off. Once I have those removed, then the oil bag will be able to be pulled, and then I can actually focus on getting that front floorboard removed as well. Now we're onto the floorboard on this side of the bike. Like I said, it's got a little different mount on it, and I'll show you that in a second here. I'm not sure if this is stock or not. I haven't torn into enough of these old bikes, so again, I'm not positive. I don't think it's stock, but it could be. We'll go ahead and we'll remove the floorboard. It's got a 7/16 nut and bolt setup on the back side here that's hooked to this mount. The mount itself is welded right to the frame, so I don't see a way to take it apart. And again, on the back side here, this is a 9/16 nut, so we're going to go ahead and remove that. We'll go ahead and bring you in closer here to show you this mount. The front here has a big washer on the back of it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of rust right there, so I'm going to go ahead and spray that with a little bit of lubricant to help be able to pull that off. But I want to show you this mount, see what you guys think about it. Maybe it's stock, maybe it's not. I'm not sure. As you can see here, this is where the floorboard mounts, and then below that is a nice big chunk of metal here, and it's hooked to the frame. It's welded on there. I'm assuming that's aftermarket. It's something somebody did a good job on, honestly. I feel like it's, you know, well built. It's thick, it's heavy duty. I think it's something that's supposed to be there. I've had one other frame like this in the past, but it was pretty well hacked up. So I'm not sure what was missing off it, what was on it. You know, again, I don't know if that's correct. I know on my 60 panhead, it doesn't, well, maybe it does have that, I don't know. I've not taken that bike apart that far. You know, that bike runs and rides, needed a little bit of maintenance and whatnot, and I've never actually torn into it. So I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way. And of course from here, we'll go ahead and we'll remove the oil bag. There is a nut and a bolt here that are 1/2 inch. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen those. It does have a nylock nut on it, so this may be a little bit of a challenge to get off. But we'll go ahead and get on the back side of it with a wrench here, and then we'll try to turn on the front side. That did loosen up real well. Now I've got, and I was wrong on the mounts, there are 2 on the front and there are 2 on the inside, I think. Maybe there's just 2 on the front. I know the bottom plate mounts on the inside. I think that just the front 2 are all that's left to get this to remove. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove these front 2 first and see where that gets me. It did take a little bit of finagling, but I was able to remove the oil bag. It's got a nice piece of shag carpet in there and some battery acid, and it's pretty gross. So this will definitely need to be cleaned. One of the things I did forget to mention was I had previously gone through and drained the oil bag, so there was no oil in it, because I knew I was going to be removing these lines today. So that was already done. I should have made mention of that in the beginning of the video, and I didn't. So there's no oil in this bag. There's a little residual on the bottom, but I know that in the bottom end of this motor there's a fair bit of oil in there, and I know once I start tearing into this a little further it's going to leak pretty bad. So I need to, you know, get a tray underneath here and address that as it comes. So this is as far as we're going to go with the bike for today. Made a fair bit of progress on it, and I'm very pleased with what I've got done so far. I know I've got some cleanup left to do. I want to put some hardware back to where it goes. I need to get this floorboard removed the rest of the way. I'm going to spray that with some penetrant and, you know, hopefully be able to remove that easily. And then of course I want to, you know, continue to assess the direction I want to go with tearing this bike down, just to get the motor and trans out. I know we're super close at this point. Like, I could leave the rest of the bike together, but I do need the lift, and I do want to get the frame and the rear axle, or excuse me, the rear swing arm out for stripping and paint, because I do want those to look nice. There's a fair bit of rust on the frame, and I don't love that, so I do want it to look nice. One of the questions I have for you guys is, when I'm having the motor rebuilt, what are your suggestions on the oil pump? I've read on forums different guys saying that those pumps are junk, they're not very good, they don't keep up, you have a lot of problems with them, and I've read guys say that they're fantastic, you're not going to have any issues, you'll love it, all that good stuff. So what's your suggestion? You know, do I upgrade the oil pump, or do I just rebuild it? Or do I assess it once I get it open and see how good it is inside? I think it works. I don't know if it works properly or if it works the way that it should. Again, I've never had this bike running fully, so I don't know if it works well. So I'm asking you guys, what do you think? What are your thoughts? Drop a comment below, please. Let me know what you guys have done on these types of bikes and if it's a good idea to upgrade it or not. My panhead has an aftermarket. No, it doesn't. No, I take that back. My panhead does not have, it has the stock oil pump on it. But I know that that motor and everything was all rebuilt, and that seems to do exactly what it's supposed to. So I'm not opposed to keeping the stock look. I do like the look of it, and I think it's, you know, the right way it should be. But, you know, I want to ride this bike and put some miles on it, and, you know, of course, if you guys think that it's a bad idea, then please let me know. Well, friends, that's it for today. I appreciate you guys following me along on this video. Super excited to get this bike, you know, going in a good direction, to get it, you know, of course, out of my barn and on the lift, and then of course get it out for rebuild. So I just want to say thank you guys for following along. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. You know, feel free to comment. You know, you guys have given me some awesome feedback, some great suggestions, and of course I love, you know, speaking to you all, you know, through the comments and whatnot. So I'm very grateful for that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, hit that subscribe button. You know, hit that bell icon too, because the bell icon will notify you every time that I upload a new video. You know, if you guys want to see this content, you want to be on top of when it comes out, go ahead and hit that bell. You know, if you got friends that like this type of stuff, share it. Share it on all social media platforms. You know, also, if you guys aren't following me on Instagram, Facebook, eBay, or whatnot, feel free to give me a follow. I'm on, you know, all the platforms. Well, not all of them. I guess it's just Instagram, Facebook, and eBay, all under Rocky's Chop Shop. You know, all my parts that are for sale are on eBay. I do some cross promotions on Instagram. I do try to sell some parts on there. I am on Facebook Marketplace selling parts on there. I do cross promote on my Facebook page from my eBay parts. So if you guys are interested in seeing what's coming up, you know, what's new and all that good stuff, you know, give all those pages a follow too. As always, guys, I appreciate you following along. We'll catch you next time.